Hi, I'm Ron, and I'm back on day 3 of my now 3rd water fast, July 2026. I am at 63 hours in, on my way to 72 hours for the completion of the 3rd day. And I thought I would give an update on how I'm doing, since I made a video like this about 24 hours ago. Yesterday, according to the keto strips, I was in mild ketosis, which to me tells me that my body was still in switch mode. It was converting from sugar to fat ketones. And today, this morning, I took my keto reading, and it was in the, definitely into the dark colors, at least moderate, if not more, on the ketosis scale. So what that tells me now is, as we've been told many times by people who are knowledgeable about fasting, that this 3rd day, this is the day when all the goodies really kick in. Your autophagy is in full swing, and now ketosis is in very heavy swing, which means my body is looking for fat to eat. And since I'm not giving it any or anything, I haven't even had tea or anything, because I don't want to do anything to upset it or confuse it. I want to let it do its thing. And that takes discipline, because as you can imagine, you're fighting its habits. So anyway, so right now I have very good faith that my body is searching for fat nutrients, which it's only going to get it from my reserves, which is what we want. I've heard it described as being on battery power versus being on gasoline engine power. Right now I'm switched over to my battery reserve power. And since I have some reserves, that's a good thing. Now, I have heard it suggested that, super skinny people that don't really have reserves, either because of their natural metabolism or whatever reason, they're not really candidates to do long-term fasting. They're more maybe intermittent fasting, just to give their digestive systems a chance to clean up, and reset. But for those of us that, for whatever reason, habits or otherwise, have stored some extra battery power, this gives the body the chance to really get at it. And the scale, which is not the only deciding factor for me, but I check my scale weight at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And that, what I have found, is that typically it doesn't really move anything worth talking about from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. But overnight, when the body is sleeping and has nothing better to do but do its thing, and you're totally out of its way, it definitely seems to go to work. So overnight, last night, I dropped, according to the scale, 2 pounds. And that's pretty typical, that I will find I get up and I'm 2 pounds less. So my goal is to find a new floor, which it did just achieve yesterday. I actually hit a new low floor in this stage of my existence. I hit a new floor, and I do know from experience as well that I have tended to gain probably 3 to 5 pounds when I start eating again on the scale. Now, of course, body weight fluctuates every day through the day, depending on what you ate, how much water, whatever. So you have to leave some margin of error. But in general, though, it stays within a range unless you're doing something else to gain or lose. So my thinking on it is, I'm going to go one more day this time because of practical reasons, schedules and everything else. And I'm going to hopefully drop another 2 pounds on the floor by tomorrow, and then I'll break the fast at some point tomorrow. But my floor will be so much lower that even if it comes up, it'll still be probably 5 or 6 or more pounds below what it was when I started 3 days ago. Probably around 5 or 6 is my guess. So that's why I think some sort of regular fasting, especially for those of us with what I call insulin body types, the types that we're not the type of people that can eat whatever we want and still be skinny. There are people like that. I have a brother like that. I mean, he's amazing. Now he doesn't eat bad, but still, he's never had an ounce of fat on his body. He's had abs his whole life and all that. And I mean, he's the same household, same meals served by our mother and whatever, but his body responded differently. I actually have 3 brothers, and we're all different to some degree. So that tells you a lot about the validity of the classic statement. By the way, I'm walking up a little bit of a grade. That's why I'm breathing like I am. Plus, I'm 3rd day now. I'm running on battery power. But anyway, what was I saying? That's one of the hazards. You get some brain clarity, but you also get some brain concentration issues at times. I've had that fluctuate. Most of the time I feel great and I'm very, very clear and my head's quiet, which is great. But then once in a while, it's almost like I just took a couple of tokes of weed or something. So anyway, so I'm feeling great. However, I definitely feel the difference. Running on pure fat, yesterday, I probably could have kind of pushed myself to do a little weight workout yesterday, but I knew I shouldn't because it was the 2nd day. In my view, in my particular experience, after doing this, I've been fasting on and off for 15 years at least, is that the first day, when you're still loaded up with glycogen and blood sugar, go for it, because that actually helps. If you do some more demanding exercise, weights or whatever you do, you're going to burn up that glycogen faster and you're going to get to ketosis faster. And from now on, that's what I'm going to do. I think I said that in my last video too, but that's a point worth reiterating. So at this point in the journey, you do have a reduced hunger per se. Like, I'm not getting hunger pangs as often or as severe. I'm still missing food. I still am looking forward to eating food, but real food. And that is a major point here, especially for us insulin people. The thing about body weight is that your body will never cut fat out of itself while insulin is in the bloodstream, especially if you're insulin resistant, which is very, very common in particularly adults who have been eating the wrong stuff for a long time. So you got to get that insulin from flowing. And biologically, we apparently were not meant to eat constantly. That whole thing they tried to throw on us many years ago about 6 meals a day and keep your metabolism moving. There was no science behind that. So be careful when you say follow the science. Who's science? Who's sponsoring it? Who owns it? You really have to be discerning. Okay? So maybe the big trick for us is to keep that insulin from moving as much as we can. Because when insulin's not moving, our body is able to identify fat to eat and use that as a fuel source. Now, as I said earlier, if you're feeding yourself fat, if you're eating keto, you're doing a good, healthy keto type diet or whatever, you're going to still feed on fat, which is great if you want that particular thing. But if you're feeding yourself that, you're not going to be burning your own. So again, it's the only thing that I know of that works is not eating. It's not about what you eat, not about what supplements we take. And there can be, worthwhile supplements. I mean, I take electrolytes, unflavored electrolytes when I'm doing this because it is, I find it really helps. It's highly recommended by doctors I respect. But short of that, it's what you don't eat. It's when you don't eat and how long you don't eat. So my philosophy now, in general, okay, is 18 hours minimum. Don't eat. So 6-hour feeding window. And now, if you're on vacation or you're having a weekend with friends or whatever, party weekend or holiday, you don't have to be guilty. I'll take a weekend or a holiday, like Christmas or whatever, and there's going to be cookies around and all that, and I'm not going to gorge myself, but I'm going to probably allow myself a treat, especially if I'm doing it right the other time and my body is showing it, my waistline and everything else, and my other indicators, right? Energy level and whatnot, performance. So, but you have to have your sort of like dominant behavior. So, and again, I'm talking to people with my type of body that can gain muscle easy, but it also will gain fat easily if it's not managed right. So having said all that, I am feeling really good. I mean, I'm on this walk again in this beautiful park that's near my house, and I just want to note as a side, there's nobody else here, and there was nobody here yesterday. So this is a beautifully maintained. If you look behind me, they just mowed the path. They mow it like every week or two, and they keep it so well maintained. It's so clean, and you'd think more people would take advantage of it. Now there is a concrete walking path here that people use for people that just want to walk on the, on the circular whatever, and that's fine. But I love being out in nature. I'm kind of a nature guy that way, and it's so peaceful out here comparatively, and it's notable to me that nobody else is here. What does that tell you? It tells you that if you're taking any steps to help yourself like this, you're in an elite group. Congratulations. As Joe Cross said, good on you. And speaking of Joe Cross, he was the creator of a great famous documentary called Fat, Sick, and Almost Dead. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I think it's free. I think it's free on YouTube. Might even be on places like Netflix. I don't know, but I watched it a long time ago. And he did a great job. One of the things they really did that impressed me, Joe himself was badly overweight, and he started a juice fast cleanse, and he was from Australia. He came to America to do it, to make his documentary. And on his travels, he apparently met a truck driver who was grossly overweight, and by his own admission, was eating terrible food. Of course, he's sitting in a truck all day. You're not getting a lot of activity, right? So, I mean, this guy, from the looks of him, I would have gauged him at over 300 pounds easy, if not 4. So he joined Joe in the video and went on the same juicing thing. And as he lost his weight, he was doing like community presentations, and they showed a couple of clips of it. It was really great. Every time he would lose 15 pounds, he would put a bowling ball up on this shelf. And at some point, the guy had like 10 bowling balls lined up. And he's like, I just lost my 10th bowling ball. Think of that. Think of what that means. Say you were 30 pounds overweight, which is very common in this country, especially, right? 30 pounds. That's 2 bowling balls. Imagine carrying 2 adult 15-pound bowling balls, one in each hand, all day long, and trying to do your normal activities that you want to do. Mowing the lawn, walking, whatever you do. Imagine how tired you would be just from that. Imagine how much more you'd sweat if it was hot out. By the way, it's like 84 degrees and humid, and I'm not even really sweating right now, which is definitely part of the result of my body being more efficient. Anyway, I'm sure I will sweat before this walk is over because I'm in direct sunlight right now. But anyway, yeah, imagine just 2 bowling balls. And then if you put them down, imagine the weight off of your frame. And that's only 2. How many people are 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, man? Can you imagine the stress on the body? You know, and that's just on like the joints and stuff you can see, but imagine the stress going on the organs, you know, and the circulation and everything else. I mean, my goodness. And usually with that comes other problems as well, because if you're that overweight, you're probably very toxic, because a lot of your fat storage is toxins trying to get away from your cells. That means your organs are poisoned, and as of course as we age, the organs are going to be less efficient to some degree naturally, and if you're poisoning them, they're going to be even more so. So it really is something to think seriously about. On that, in that direction of thinking, that makes me think of, how do you get through your first fast? Because this is not my first one, and I did a 5-day fast a week ago, actually, and my first 5-day water fast, and it was definitely harder than this. Now, because I had experienced fasting in general, it wasn't as hard for me as it probably was for someone who's never done it, but it was harder. It's noticeably easier. Doesn't mean it's easy, just means it's noticeably easier. So how do you get through it? To me, it starts with the mental commitment. You have to believe in and comprehend why you're doing it. And in order to do that, you need some understanding. You got to do a little research. I spend hours watching fasting videos like this, you know, when I'm fasting, especially. This is when I really like to watch them, because for all kinds of reasons, you know, but to educate myself is the primary reason. But of course, it does kind of help to have people empathize with what you're going through, right? You know, other people that are doing videos each day they're fasting, and they're telling you about their whatever symptoms they're getting. Some people get, you know, the keto flu, as they call it, and all this stuff. It does help, but then more than that is education. I found several people I like and I respect for what they say about it, and I look for commonalities, and that's what I do in general. As you know, the executive of my channel, the Nutritional Agnostic, that's what that title's about. It's about, I don't believe anything they tell me just on the surface. I've learned not to, so I have to analyze it and research it and try it out. It has to work intellectually. It has to work in my perception of sound science as I see it, and it has to work in my own experience. Recognizing that we're all different, recognizing that what works for you exactly may not work for me. You know, again, if you're a person who's always been naturally super skinny, and you're one of those people like can't get muscle, and you never get any body fat because it's just who you are, then you're gonna have a different set of specific needs than me. But I am talking universal principles, I think, but applying them to my body type, you know, basically. So okay, so let's talk about who's responsible for the shape that we're in. I'm assuming that children of the current generation have, for all intents and purposes, a very similar experience to what I had growing up in the 70s. TV commercials with cereals and other unsavory, let's call them food-like substances, but made very attractive packaging-wise. Like, I remember, you know, loving the characters of Frankenberry and Count Chocula and the toucan from the Fruit Loops, and the rabbit, you know, from the Tricks and all that, right? They all worked really well. Man, even I used to love the Hamburglar, and, you know, the other characters from the McDonald's thing, especially back when McDonald's used to have cartoons on the wall with those things. And then I learned to love the crinkly paper, and then of course I always wanted a chocolate shake, and then I wanted that really tasty fried apple pie. I mean, all this stuff, sweet poison. There was a book called that a few years back, Sweet Poison. I have it. I recommend it. You can look it up on YouTube. I think the author did some presentations and whatnot. I mean, he's not really saying anything that has not been said, but he put it all together in a nice way, and he made the point very well. So I used to teach nutrition classes because one of my actual degrees is in wellness. So I had to, I sort of had the qualification to teach in that area. And I used to show at the time, because it was about when his book came out, I used to show him doing presentations about sugar. So I was trying, because I had adult students, it was like night school that I was teaching, and I had adult students, and I was trying to impress upon them the dangers of sugar. Now, having said that, my name is Ron, and I'm a sugar addict, and I was made into a sugar addict. It is interesting, though, that two of my three brothers are not sugar addicts that I know of. It's very interesting how that happened. Same genes, same household, same opportunities. Why did I succumb to it? So you have to ask yourself that too. What is it about you, about the way you're made? But any addiction is addressed best by admitting it first, right? You have to admit it. Okay. So yes, by nature, I'm a sugar addict. Am I a victim to it? Not if I can help it. So that's one of the things that fasting does for us, is it resets, if you do it long enough, it resets your relationship with food. And that is so vital. It's impossible to overstate how important that is. Because we need the control over our food decisions, not our body ruling us. We have to rule our body, and that's a tough concept to really appreciate and believe in. Okay, so when you reset, like I think I said this in my last video, I start to crave real food. Yes, would I want a chocolate bar? Yeah, sure, they taste great, right? But I guess I can describe it as want more than need at that point. When you're addicted, you feel like you need to have a treat. My meal's not complete without something sweet. And don't hate yourself and persecute yourself for that. We were programmed to feel that way. So once you get that sensibility, that's when you can start making more intelligent choices for yourself. And you may have to start and restart over and over again. I mean, this is not the last time I'm going to fast, and it's not the first time, of course. But how aggressively I'm going to have to fast is going to depend on my behavior. If I start really violating common sense and I start, shoveling down sugary stuff, that's how I know it's time. And of course, your body's going to tell you too. If you're wherever your body type is, like mine is, stores fat above the waist. So if my waist starts expanding, I know that I'm missing the boat. But I mean, you can also, if you're honest with yourself, you can see it. You can see it in your jawline. You can see it in your arms. Wherever your body deposits its extra fat. And that is another thing to note is that your body's going to remove the fat basically in the opposite direction it puts it on. So if you're like me, and the first thing that happens is the lower gut and maybe a little bit of love handle or whatever, that's the last place it's going to leave. First in, last out. So after it puts as much as it wants to put there, then it starts to put it in other places, maybe higher in the gut, or maybe around your neck, or maybe for some people, in their arms. And then there are the types, of course, that put it below the waist. But so that's what you're looking for too when your body's changing. You're looking for the last place it likes to put it to leave first. So like for me, I notice one of the very first things I notice is my jaw and my neck thinning out, and then my head seemingly shrinking, which is really bizarre. So what does that tell us? That we literally have a fat head? That there's fat around our brain? That's scary. I mean, to me, that would be like motivation to do something about it, you know? But nobody says it's easy though, okay? I'm not implying this is a zip, okay? I'm in my 3rd day here, and I am having to remember why I'm doing this, you know? And this evening, it'll even be harder. Even like when I get back from this walk, because I'm depleting more of whatever is left. If there is any trace amounts of glycogen and, you know, sugary stuff, I'm depleting it. So I may at some point want a nap this afternoon. That's happens. You know, it's really funny because the last time I did this 5-day, well, which was just a week ago, I was very nappy after the 3rd day, and I'm not feeling that now. I am feeling more of that promised surge of more regular energy, which is amazing. Okay, but anyway, back to the addiction thing. So you have to address your addiction as an addiction. I've actually heard it stated that sugar is more addicting than heroin. I mean, it is for me, because I have no interest in heroin, but I have lots of interest in sweet treats, or at least I did. So you have to approach it that way. And again, like I said earlier, by keeping your insulin from moving for as long as possible, that's going to help. But it's not going to solve everything, because you still have to get enough control to make better choices. And I don't know any better way, from my experience, and I've tried, you know, different things than fasting. And I have done the juice fasting thing, which I think is great. I recommend it. You get lots of phytonutrients, which are great for us, but it's not going to accomplish the same thing as the water fasting, because you're not forcing the ketosis and the inner fat eating, and you're not forcing, I don't think you're forcing autophagy in a juice fast. I could be wrong about that, but I haven't heard that that's part of the benefit. So you just have to, again, know in your mind why, and not lose sight of that. You have to keep knowing why you're doing it. And the way you do that is you keep yourself educated. As I said, for me, I watch fasting videos because it describes in detail what's going on in my body, all the autophagy and the self-fat burning, which is so exciting, especially for those of us that have, you know, bodies that resist letting go of their stored fat. But they cannot deny water fasting. It's not a choice. You deprive them of their other fuel, it has to turn to fat. And if you don't give it to it, it's got to eat yours. I mean, it's a no-brainer on that, you know. So hopefully that, again, will inspire you to want to think seriously about getting in this. And again, you can start with intermittent fasting. Try 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. Try to get yourself to at least 18 hours, because that's where the magic just begins to happen. It's not the magic that's happening now in the 3rd day, but it is definitely good. And it may be, for a lot of people, it may have never happened before. Now, I realize that if you've been eating toxic stuff your whole adult life or before, you're going to detox. And detox symptoms, you can look those up, man. Plenty of video info on that, as well as written info, that you will experience detox systems, which are, you know, the classic sort of flu-like. And I had that to a degree the very first time I ever did the juice fast. I definitely had sort of like the flu-ish feeling. But this time, I'm hardly at all, if at all. Especially this second water fast. The first one I did, 5 days, I think I got a little bit of the mild version of it, but so far I really haven't experienced it this time. And again, I'm looking at 72 hours. It's going to be at midnight this evening, and it's like, what is it, 3:30 now. So, please, you know, if I can be of any help, and direct you to sources or whatever, feel free to email me or comment or whatnot. Like I said, there are plenty of good sources out there that I like, that I've used, not least of which was my childhood hero, Jack LaLanne. But Jack, even though he had his juicer and stuff, I don't know that Jack was a juice faster. I think he just recommended juice for hypernutrition, which is fine, because the argument is you're never going to eat 7 beets, but you can juice them and drink all that nutrition out of them. So, all right, well, until next time, I will bid you good health and personal strength, and I will be back with more topics. And I'm going to break the fast tomorrow on the 4th day, again because of my schedule and whatnot. I can't handle a 5 this week because of what I have to do, but if I have time before I break it, I will try to make a video just so you can see how I'm doing. But if not, you can have faith that I'll be doing great, and I'll probably be a couple of pounds less on the scale as well. So be healthy, be happy, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.